Welcome to another exciting episode of the Fresh CrEd podcast, where we bring you the freshest insights from the leaders shaping the future of the food industry. Today, we're thrilled to have Chef David Ruiz, an award-winning chef known for his innovative approach to fresh produce and culinary excellence. Chef David shares his passion for crafting unique dishes that celebrate fresh ingredients and his insights into the trends driving the culinary world today. Now, let's get cooking with Chef David Ruiz.
Welcome, folks. Thanks for joining us today. We're here at IFCO's, the Food Service Conference in beautiful Monterey, California. I'm joined here by my co-host, Mr. Craig Slate.
Hey, y'all.
And we've also been joined by Executive Chef, Mr. David Ruiz.
Bueno.
Thank you for joining us. So, Executive Chef of Scalo.
Exactly.
In Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Yes.
Thanks for being here.
I'm very excited to be here.
So we were talking a little bit before we started recording. Your first time at the expo, at this expo?
It is.
Okay. So what do you think so far?
It's incredible. I love Monterey. I actually grew up in San Jose.
Oh, wow.
So I spent a lot of my youth down here, actually out there surfing. I used to surf up in Santa Cruz too. So weather's extremely hot out here. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it is a little weird. So I grew up in Gilroy. I live in Texas. My family's from Texas. I moved out here and then moved back, and so I live in Texas now. But yeah, I was actually born in San Jose. So yeah, I know the area pretty well too, and it's funny because I was talking about it this week, and I said, I wish, everything's perspective, right? Like I wish I would have appreciated it more growing up here. I look back and it feels like something out of a movie, like my childhood. And
exactly.
We lived in the foothills, like near the foothills there in Gilroy, so out in the country, and it was just a great place. It was a great time to be a kid too, in the 80s, and I wish I appreciated the weather more.
Exactly.
It seems like everywhere I've lived since has been super hot. Las Vegas, Houston, South Texas, Phoenix. I mean, all hot places. So I don't know. I'm ready to move to Alaska or something like that. But so you said you grew up here.
Yeah.
And then where'd you go? How'd you get to Albuquerque?
Yeah. So I was working actually out in Yosemite, California about 12 years ago.
Beautiful place.
I got drunk one night and I wanted to move, and I threw a dart on a map of the U.S. and I said, I'm going to move to wherever this dart is. And if it hits a small city, I'll move to the next biggest city. Well, it hit Los Lunas, which is about 30 miles south of Albuquerque. And I started looking for jobs in Albuquerque. And my first job was at the Hyatt Tamiya there. I moved out in 2013, didn't know a single soul. Thought I'd be there for a year or two, and it's been 11 years now.
That's awesome. My wife has an aunt that lives in Los Lunas, and I haven't been there, but I've been to Albuquerque a bunch of times. Great part. New Mexico's beautiful. I wish I had more time to explore it, but
yeah.
New Mexico, Colorado, it's kind of a toss-up for me, but could see myself living there maybe in the future.
Exactly. It's gorgeous, gorgeous place.
Or at least have some sort of arrangement where at least I could spend the summers there because they're a little less severe than Texas. So Scalo, tell us about the restaurant. What kind of cuisine do you serve there? A little bit about that would be great.
So Scalo opened up in 1986. It was one of the flagship restaurants in Albuquerque in a region called Nob Hill. Nob Hill was actually named after the Nob Hill in San Francisco, ironically.
Oh, wow.
So there was a lady who settled in the 20s from the original Nob Hill in San Francisco there and kind of renamed that area. Nob Hill is known for its great restaurants, and my restaurant was the crown jewel there for a very long time. It closed down in 2018 after a great run. It was kind of ran into the ground. There was some bad management, and pipe burst one night in 2018, and the restaurant shut down. It was rebought by a couple in late 2019. Reopened, of course, in the middle of the pandemic. Yeah, exactly.
Great timing.
Exactly. I got hired about 3 years ago to kind of just renovate the place, to kind of bring it back to its former glory. I will tell you guys, I had always wanted to be the chef of this restaurant.
Wow.
So it reminded me of a restaurant I worked here in the Bay Area, so it's a completely open kitchen. We do Italian food, so every day I make fresh pasta there. We source from about 17 different farms. We have a beautiful co-op of vegetable farmers, beef, pork farmers as well. And what we're really doing is it's Italian, but it's it's farm to table, and it has like a New Mexican. We're sourcing from New Mexico, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And we do fuse like some of the red and green chili. We fuse some of the Native American concepts like blue corn, sumac, agave, and all that type of stuff into our food.
That's awesome. Wow.
So I love the trajectory, right? So I take it you're not a risk taker. I mean, anybody that just throws a dart at a dartboard.
That's something out of a movie.
Yeah,
that seems like something out of a movie.
So yeah, I'm gonna assume that maybe you've taken a few risks in your life. Is that fair to say?
It is. I mean, no risk, no reward. I think in my older age, though, I'm a little bit more do a little more research behind my risks now.
Yeah.
So
you're not throwing dartboards for the next move just yet.
No.
Yeah, so, or maybe not getting as drunk and then throwing dartboards.
Exactly.
That becoming your planning mechanism. Well, with that risk taking, I mean, I'm curious. Do you take that risk attitude that you have and apply that to kind of what you're cooking and how you're seeing your next menu item or what you're doing in the kitchen?
We do. So we're very technique driven. I mean, I always say like everything's already been done under the sun. It's just kind of how you look at it. You know, my big thing is like, what's my point of view? You know, I think in order for a restaurant to be successful, the head chef, the executive chef, has to have like, what's his story behind the food? So for example, we're doing things like dry aging fish in the restaurant, right? We've even actually started a program where we were dry aging vegetables. That was like the big thing. I
got to tell you, dry aging fish, right? I mean, I guess I to some extent understand even the concept around dry aged beef. You know, there's also a part of me that thinks it's a good marketing strategy. You know, because I've had good dry aged beef. Tell me what it changes about the fish. How does dry aging fish? What changes and what improves it?
So first of all, I have to give credit to a guy named Josh Nyland. He's a chef in Australia, and he's the original founder of this concept. So what it does is it prolongs the fish's life, but not only does that, it concentrates the flavor, creates a different texture, and overall a completely different product. One that tastes like meatier and in my opinion, more flavor and juicier.
So basically what dry aging does is it takes the water basically out of it, right? It reduces the amount of water. How do you go about dry aging fish?
Okay, so I built a chamber in the restaurant. So it's we actually took an empty closet that we weren't using, and I was like, okay, what can we do with this? You know, as space is always the ever problem in every, especially single standing restaurant. So we have it sitting at a certain temperature and a certain humidity, and then what I do is I just crust it in sea salt.
Okay.
And we have, depending on what fish it is, it'll sit for anywhere from 10 to 14 to 21 days.
So that preserves and draws the moisture.
Exactly. And you'll see you'll lose about 25%. You know, for example, we do halibut and we lose about 25% of it. But then you get this just beautiful, if you can think about halibut on steroids, as a flavor. And it's just incredible.
Wow. So yeah, with that process, so it doesn't get old or doesn't mold or anything like that. Then the salt, is that what does the protective on it?
Yeah. So the salt cures it, and then we have a fan in there that kind of helps keeping it dry, because what you really want to do is just keep moisture.
Yeah.
Off the fish. You know, we also have a dry aging beef program there. Same thing. Two separate areas that we do it in, but you're just trying to keep that moisture off.
And the vegetables, how did that work?
The first few times we did it was an epic failure. But fail, guys, is my big thing. And when you do take some of these risks, you got to put yourself out there. We have a lot of vegetarians and vegans that come into our restaurant, and we're starting to, with the climate changing, with the space of our restaurant, we're trying to use some different techniques. Like I said, technique driven. So, we started off with an eggplant. It was horrible, but we have a 7-day dry aged eggplant that we actually we salt, we cure it, then it gets dry aged for 7 days. We smoke it and then we grill it, and it's absolutely fantastic.
My God, I gotta try that.
It's kind of mind blowing. And you know what? I had this conversation on my panel yesterday, and it's most people are like, why do you do that, chef, or why would you do that? And in my opinion, it's why wouldn't we do that?
Right.
So often we've been told by, the old, I always say the old European chefs, what we could and what we couldn't do. I think at this point, we're just kind of throwing the playbook out and kind of starting over.
The gloves are off.
Well, yeah, when you said, everything's already been done or it's just done differently. I don't know of anybody that's doing dry aged eggplant, smoking it and then grilling it.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, so we're a fairly sizable eggplant shipper. In fact, when I come to see you, I'm going to bring you my own case of eggs that you can that you can smoke up. But seriously, that sounds amazing.
It's fun. It's just my staff, we use it as a test kitchen a lot. So we're just playing with a lot of different unique products, and we're very vegetable driven as an Italian restaurant. And so we have a lot of local farmers, but we use some of the big guys too, and we're just kind of fit all that product in there and what we can do with it.
Yeah, because I was going to ask. I mean, some of the items are very seasonal. I mean, green and red chilies, New Mexico chilies are obviously there's a season, and it's not access. You just don't have it year round, right?
Yeah.
So how do you work around that? I mean, do you store enough? Do you freeze? I mean, do you offer it year round?
Yeah.
Or
So the green chili for sure. So once again, so our growing season for local is probably like mid to late April through, if you're lucky, like mid-October. So what we're doing in those like spring, summer, and like late or early fall months is we're using every technique, preserving, canning, we'll sous vide and freeze, all these products so that we have them to use them throughout the winter. Because in the winter time, we're not really able to get very much. But we moved to a heavier seasonal menu at that point. And then we do use a frozen green chili product during that time. Unfortunately, it's frozen, but it's still pretty great.
Yeah, green chili's good.
Yeah, no, we were talking about that before the show, about the roasters and the smell of the roasters when you roll up at your grocery store and go to pick up the stuff.
It's a lot of work, though. I think the last time I picked up a box, I thought I'd be a hero, and I came home and I showed my wife, and she's like, "You know what we have to do with it now, right? We have to process it all because they were roasted and they were sweating."
Yeah.
And then you have to do something with them, right? And so, yeah, we spent the rest of that evening cutting and peeling and putting everything in bags.
Wasn't such a great idea.
It wasn't such a great idea. And I'd just come off a trip, so I showed up at home with a case of roasted green chilies, and I didn't really think that through.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't start with a case. They do have smaller packs.
Exactly.
I mean,
Well,
that's just a little.
It seemed very attractive.
Little tip, but so I love that. That was kind of where I was going with that question around the risk, and I mean that's fantastic. I mean, what else? I mean, so far you've piqued my interest. I mean, we've got the dried aged veg. I love the eggplant idea. Fish. You know, I want to try this halibut. I mean, that sounds amazing.
Have you smoked artichokes?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're big. We're big, and like I said, it's all technique driven. We're big into like just infusing whatever kind of our imaginations are. I'm very lucky. I have a great staff. They're very diverse. So I have a prep guy who's a former executive chef. His kids are grown.
Okay.
He grew up in Las Cruces, but it's like having a second executive chef like on your staff, and he helps a lot. He does a lot of the smoking and the grilling and those types of things. And then, most of my staff, to be honest, guys, they started off with me as dishwashers. My sous chef, my lead line cook.
Really?
And they all have different backgrounds. And, one of my big things is we're creating menus, too, is to be like, well, what did you love that your grandmother cooked? How can we recreate that and fit that in this restaurant? And it kind of gives them
staying in the Italian vein, or do you branch out? Before I knew you were an Italian restaurant primarily. Yeah. I was dreaming about pozole because that's green chili pozole is my favorite.
So I'll give you. I love green chili pozole, but okay. For example, one of my cooks, his favorite thing was mole. So we ended up creating this beautiful corn ravioli that sits on a mole sauce with candied piñones and queso fresco. Oh,
that sounds great. Mole. I think I had it once a week my whole life growing up, so I said I'd never eat it again, but I'll try yours.
Exactly. Yeah. So as you can see, we're using these like diverse, methods. Again, we have a huge Native American influence.
Right.
So instead of doing normal focaccia, we use blue corn is very popular there. We do a blue corn focaccia. So it's like it's just taking the same old thing, guys, and reimagining it with the ingredients that we have there.
So
Awesome.
curious in the way the world's moving and the consumers out there, right? So you talked about vegans and vegetarians kind of being a big thing, and that's why you're kind of leaning into that veg space even more than you were possibly. What about things like you got to have a lot of pasta?
Yep.
Do you guys have the alternative gluten-free, or are you strictly straight up old school pasta?
No, so we make a gluten-free pasta with Thomas Keller's Cup for Cup.
Okay.
We do it in a separate part of our kitchen, but yeah, we try to be inclusive of everybody as much as we can.
Yeah.
Obviously there's a point where you got to say no, but we do offer like vegan, vegetarian, and gluten-free dishes all over the menu, including a gluten-free pasta.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
What do you think about the cauliflower trend with like pizza crusts and cauliflower bowls and meat? I mean, that's all value added, like consumer products, but
some of it I'm here for. I love me a good cauliflower crust. In general,
I like it too.
In general, I love cauliflower.
Yeah.
Some of it's starting to get a little bit beyond, like,
over the top.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything cauliflower.
But I think there's a lot of versatility in vegetables that just isn't really recognized.
Yeah. It's fun. I mean, I haven't gone through the process of actually making a fresh, like, homemade cauliflower crust, but we buy the blanks, I call them. Basically, it's just a crust by itself. And the kids love building their own pizza, and I'm a big, like, well done. I like my pizza very well done, like crispy. And I think once it gets to that point, I mean, I tell myself I can't really tell the difference. I don't know. I guess you can.
I can't. I really can't.
Once it's crispy enough, I mean, it's just great. I mean, it's all about what you put on it.
I'll tell you,
and it's better than having a pizza that's semi-cold by the time you get it home.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, and that's what I hate about.
I'll tell you, a good almost burnt bottom is the way I love my pizza.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, do you guys do pizzas there?
We do pizza in the restaurant as well.
Yeah.
We make a gluten-free pizza dough. It's something that we are ever expanding with. It's hard to get that like crisp bottom with it to kind of get it that same texture, but we do a pretty good job, and it's like I said, it's something that we just continue to evolve like month after month.
Now, you guys, is it the stone grill? Well, how are you doing your pizza?
Yeah, so we use a big stone pizza oven.
Yeah.
We actually it's meant for it's both electrical, but it does wood as well.
Uh-huh.
So we'll throw some pecan wood in there as well, just trying to get that like flavor. And then we have to actually cook the gluten-free pizzas like on a separate little stone that we keep inside of there, just to try to keep it gluten, to keep the regular pizza.
No, I love that. Like I say, my wife will be joining me, and she'll be glad to know because she loves Italian food.
He's not going to leave you alone now.
No. I mean, I'm coming. He's got.
I want to go
the
too.
Bad news for him. Well, you can come. It's a bit more of a drive for you than it is me, and so, So because she can't get typically good Italian food because she's got to avoid gluten and all that kind of stuff. So for her, I was asking on her behalf because I want to go home and get excited about your restaurant. And I was like, yeah, you can't go. So hey, but all right. Did you as a young child, you're looking around? It's like, you know what? I'm going to grow up to be a chef. Is that kind of before the dart was thrown?
Yeah.
Is it when did the chef epiphany come?
Pretty early, I'd say about 8.
Wow.
Funny enough, I have a white Jewish mother, a Mexican Catholic father. So I had these like two, crazy religions and food influences in my life. My grandmother, right? So it's funny you say that. So my grandmother has a small farm in Gilroy, California, right there off 3rd Street. And so she spent about a decade in France, and she was from Mexico. So I grew up eating this crazy Mexican, like French fusion.
French-Mexican.
Food.
Oh my gosh, that's maybe it.
And I was like one of those kids where like our parents we weren't rich, but we weren't poor. And so my mom was shopping at farmers markets at a young age. I have a twin sister. We knew what food was. We knew what good food was, especially growing up in the Bay Area. And I spent all my summers with my grandmother. She had avocado trees. She grew livestock. So I saw that farm to table movement from a very young age. So at 8 years old, I'm reading Betty Crocker cookbooks. I'm hanging out in front of restaurants, watching what bakers and pizza chefs are doing. And by about 10 years old, it was like, hey, this is the path that I want to be on. I was accepted to culinary school my junior year, and a month after graduating high school, I was already doing it. My first job was at an In-N-Out Burger. And so food has always just been a huge part of my life, and to be honest, boys, it's the only thing I was ever good at.
Yeah.
Well, you're very fortunate to realize that at such a young age.
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody does. You know, a big part of our podcast when we started it, we were sort of on a health kick and trying to improve ourselves and our lives and our health. And so you seem to be a pretty fit guy. You work in a restaurant. Like, how do you do it? What, you have any kind of routine that you regularly go to the gym? Or, I mean, if I was a chef, I would weigh 500 pounds.
So, so 2016, I was on Chopped. Okay, I was in New York. I got home. It was the fattest I ever was. I weighed 240 pounds. In the summer of 2016, took a look at myself in the mirror. I had my son was about 1.5 years at that point, and I couldn't keep up playing with him. Mm-hmm. And I was like, there's just got to be a change.
So it wasn't natural for you. Like, you had to work at it.
Yeah, I did.
Because some people are just naturally, you know, their metabolism is such that they just don't gain a lot of weight.
And we hate those people.
Yeah, definitely.
So anyway, from then, I started a pretty good workout program. During the pandemic, I became a runner. Mm-hmm. I was running, a 10K, like pretty much, 5 times a week. Luckily now I have a beautiful partner. Her name's Paige, and she's everything she does is like health related. She's a road cyclist. So the last like 2.5 years I've gotten into that. So we bike, we'll bike 30, 40 miles, about 3 or 4 times a week. And then I'm in the gym 5 days a week, Monday through Friday in the morning. So if I don't, I'll blow up,
Wow.
That's
pretty impressive.
So when are you at the kitchen, and then when do you sleep?
I don't, I grind about 70 hours a week in my restaurant. I always say though, it's like, I love what I do.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky. The crew that I have too, I mean, everybody's highly invested in what we're doing. So lucky.
Yeah, no, that's fortunate. I always tell my kids, find what you love and do that.
Yeah.
See
if you can make some money off
of it.
Right?
I mean, you typically you can figure out how to make money out of just about anything, right? But it's awesome when you're at a young age and you figure out what you want to do, and then you just drive into that passion. And so you eventually when you went to Albuquerque, you were already a chef then when you got to Albuquerque. Is that correct?
So I was originally hired at the Hyatt Tamia, and I was their garde manger chef, so all cold food, so basically salads, fruit platters, like all that stuff. So I worked there for 2 years, and then I took my first executive chef position at a restaurant called Soul and Vine that I helped open. And I will tell you guys, I will look back at the food that I put out in 2014, 15, and I'm embarrassed by like what I put out. So,
yeah.
But it was a really good experience, making that transition from a sous chef into that executive chef role. But I've been one ever since.
Is there anything in your years of being around chefs, yourself, is there anything in particular that stands out that really makes an exceptional chef?
It's to be open. You have to make I always say you have to make an enemy of envy, and you have to really humble yourself. I mean, it's one of those things where you can learn from anybody. Support the people around you in your community. That's like another big thing. But I failed and lost way more than I've won in this world. And I try to tell people, like, don't be afraid to make a mistake, because we learn a whole lot more from our failures than our successes.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. We've talked about that, in previous podcasts, and it's a hard thing. I think people think that's just a slogan, but the reality of it is, it's real. Mm-hmm. All your education comes not from what you succeed at, but what you fail at.
It is, and I think the problem is that we live in a world sometimes that still says don't fail.
Yeah,
right? We live in that, and it's not true. Not at all. Thomas Keller, Renee Zendepi, all these very well-known chefs will all tell you more about the times that they lost and the times that the dish didn't work out than the one that did.
Can you go back to your experience on Chopped? That was really interesting. Like, I watched the show.
Yeah, so I'm lucky. So I was on Chopped in 2016. I'll tell you a quick story. So, I was the executive chef of the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center at the time. They flew me out to New York. I was out there for a week. Filmed the third day. It was the absolute worst cooking performance I've ever put on tape ever. I was so...
What were your ingredients?
Oh, so
hang on. I want to hear about.
I was so nervous.
Yeah,
guys.
nervous.
That was the big thing, right? I was like, I didn't sleep the night before. I was just like, I was so amped up, you know, and I was just like, I can't lose. I can't lose. I can't be embarrassed. Like, this is going to be embarrassing if I get chopped first. And I put too much stress and pressure on myself. So they get you up at 6 a.m., you know, and you're at, you know, you meet where you go at the Bowery Market at 7. They take you up and, you know, they strip you of everything and give you a chef coat, and, you know, they put you out on this stage, and it's, you know, they have a million lights and everything. And so you're sweating, you're hungry, you're nervous. And I'm not going to lie, I let all that get to me. The stage was too big at that point in my career for me at that moment. It was a taco episode. It's called Taco Time. So you can go back and look at it. The first course, they gave us tripe, coffee liqueur, broccoli rabe.
Oh my God.
And watermelon. And I'm like, I'm sitting there like, the hell am I going to do with this?
Oh my God.
And you had to make a taco. And so so I was very lucky. The only reason I didn't get chopped on the very first set there was because, unfortunately, the poor girl next to me forgot to put the tripe, which was one of the core ingredients, on her dish. I got chopped on the second round. I went home really defeated. I was pretty heartbroken, and just knew I had a lot more to do, to learn, to push myself. Anyway.
What was the required dish on the second round?
So same thing, taco. I'm trying to remember this time around. It was like pork shoulder too. It was like pork shoulder. It was like Vidalia onions and a couple other things. I can't even remember now.
I'm going to watch this.
Well, I'm just curious. So overall, right? So, and you know, it's as you tell that story. So all I'm reflecting back on is 2 minutes before we were talking about failure and being the best way to learn. You know, and you know how much you got out of it. But I'm curious, how did the dishes taste? Right. So I guess, you know, from the different chefs, you know, when you tasted it, did you get a chance to taste everybody's? So
mine was the worst.
It was.
So I was really deep in my career with. So if most people know me, my plating is a big thing. My presentation of my food.
Okay.
It looked great. It looked better than everybody else's, but there was just nothing. There's no soul behind it. I was just plating for the judges to like it.
Yeah.
And that was a big learning moment in my career. Now, real quick, fast forward 2022. I get asked to come back on a new show called It's Complicated.
Okay.
Right? Same sort of deal, but it's vegan and vegetarian and gluten-free food this time around. Tabitha Brown ran the show. Same sort of scenario. I got a good night's sleep. I woke up. I ran a 10K that morning. You know, had my coffee, shaved, got ready. I went in there and I won.
Oh, that's great.
I won the 10 grand. You know, same thing. Three different challenges, and I'll tell you, just that, being myself, getting that good routine, drinking water, having a good night's sleep, was all the difference in the world. And if I could tell that David to that David, you know.
But that's, I got it. But that brings it complete circle,
it does.
right? You know, when you think about it, you know, that success that you had in 2022 was all based on what you learned in that first competition.
And you had to fail that first time to get there.
You couldn't tell that David that because David had to learn that on the
You
first
don't know
time.
what you don't know, you know.
And that's amazing. Hell, that was a nice little package deal, you know.
Exactly.
So no, that's great. That's awesome. So, all right. So just real quick on this fresh produce, right? And your meal preparation and kind of where you're going with fresh produce, right? How do you see that with your consumers, with the folks coming into the restaurant, right? Are they really looking for you to lean more into that? Are you guys leaning more into that? And if so, where are you kind of going with that?
Yeah, well, first off, I'll start off that the consumer is no longer dumb, in my opinion. I mean, people want to know where their food comes from. I mean, that's a huge, huge thing. Not only that, they now want to know what the story is behind it, because they can go down to the restaurant 2 blocks down who's going to give you that beautiful story with a James Beard nominated chef, right? And so it's not even so much like the competition. It's just, it's kind of how you interpret it. Our clientele, as we have seen, have gotten a little bit younger, and again, they're a lot more health conscious. Like this, you know, my generation of the millennials, now the Gen Z, the Gen Ys, you know, they're coming in. they're in the workforce, they have the disposable income, and they want healthier options. I mean, with healthier options come more vegetables. And so what we're doing, like I said, is we've really upped our game in the last couple of years with the amount of like people, like local artisans that we're buying from. You know, I shop at our downtown growers market, you know, every Saturday, so people can see that I have a presence down there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're able to tell those stories from Silverleaf, from Vita Verde Farm, from Sweet Mercy Farms. You know, you can tell these stories that like, hey, this is grown less than 50 miles from here. And we're imagining it in the way we want to cook it for you, but you're able to eat this, and not only is it beautiful, it's healthy.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, so you do feel like that folks are moving towards that. You're finding that people, when they look at the menu, they're selecting healthier options?
I do. I see it. And like I said, you know, that whole, you know, when you build a plate and you have the starch, veg, like protein, like the classic three item thing is kind of losing too. In the summer, like for example, I'm getting away from starches and we're doing like a double veg.
Okay.
You know, for example, we do this beautiful pork chop that we have some braised dino kale, you know, the black kale essentially, and then we're actually taking like mushrooms that are grown for shiitakes for the restaurant, and we're smoking them and tossing them in a little bit of apple cider balsamic and finishing them in a pan. So you're losing that like starch, but you're giving somebody that value.
That's awesome.
But it's also beautiful and it's a lot healthier, and we're seeing more requests for that year over year.
That's awesome.
So,
yeah.
I'm getting hungry.
Yeah, so when I will come, I'm coming to visit. You know, I may do my own selfie from the restaurant.
Nice.
Okay, so we may set up. But what's for you, right? What's your signature on that menu? In other words, what are you going to tell me to order?
Well, that's so hard.
I know.
Hard.
Well, I mean,
It's like picking your favorite kid.
I know. It's funny. People be like, "What's good on the menu?" It's like we design our menus that everything's great.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
It's what I'm very well known for is we do a hand cut tagliatelle pasta with a truffle mushroom sauce.
Okay.
And we have mushrooms that are specifically grown for scallow. And so we saute and we fold that in there, and it gets a little bit of truffle oil, and then we grate some pecorino. And it sounds really simple, boys, but that's what Italian food is, and it's what we sell the most and what people just love. I tried taking it off the menu after 2 years. 3 weeks later, we had so many emails and
Wow.
comments that I had to put it back on. I can't get rid of it.
That's
So
pretty impressive.
What do you do? So what I love to do is I like to go, especially if people that have things like smoked aged eggplant,
Yeah.
right? Things are off. But for me, in fact, there's a restaurant, I'm not going to remember the name of it, in San Francisco we went. Fabulous place we got a recommendation on. But to go in and you have a chef sampler, and then it's like whatever the chef decides you're going to have. For me, that's my favorite, because that way, all right, you don't have to pick one, but pick me 5 or 6 that you want to have try. So do you guys do anything like that?
Oh yeah. So the one thing about Scalo is because it's been open for so long, we still have a lot of like repeat customers. In fact, that's like 60% of our business. And so sometimes some of these customers will come in with like clients of theirs, and they'll be like, you know what, chef, we just want you to kind of create something
There
for
you
us.
go.
And then sometimes I'll just go down to the farmer's market or I'll call a farmer like Seth from Vita Verde. I'm like, Seth, what do you got? What are you excited about? Give it to me, bring it, and we'll make something out of it. And we have a beautiful wine room that we can seat 6.
Oh my
you can
God.
seat up, for
Now
about
you really did it.
2, 4.
Oh, here comes
2,
the
4,
show,
2,
baby.
2, 4, 6, or 8, and I call it my chef's table. And that's just an incredible experience. You get to sit down in this beautiful wine room surrounded by about 200 bottles of wine. You can pick one of those bottles of wine, and then I come in and I bring you, a little 2 to 3 bites per portion of something that's off menu, that's seasonal, and that you may never get again from me.
Okay, well,
Can you adopt him?
I
know the wheels are just spinning.
Oh my God! Well, no, I mean, so I've been wanting to do this show, right, from a restaurant, right? So, because we'll go to dinner, like some of us in the produce business, or whatever, and then it's just like this organic conversation, right? Well, Mason, on the production side, worries about the noise, and I can get the shot. And I'm like, we can figure this out.
Yeah.
You know he's here, right?
I do know he's here. Yeah, and he'll only listen to this 10 times and have to hear me say that. But that wine room, I mean, so I love wine. So
Yeah.
that's another passion. But wine, food, and then the opportunity. Yeah, we may be hitting you up to see if we can corner that room and come do a, and like I say, it would be an industry deal. But we come in and just talk food, talk the industry, what's going on.
Bring in a grower. That would be cool.
Yeah, we'll bring, but yeah, and something fun we can do. So, but yeah.
To be continued.
It will have to be continued for sure. They keep us on a pretty tight leash here, so on the timing. But man, this has been fantastic, and I'm glad you're in Albuquerque.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, so that's awesome. I'm glad the DART, Los Lunas. What's God, I pass it all the time. Truth or consequences.
Yep.
TRC.
TRC.
Good news, you didn't get that one.
Exactly.
I stopped in there one time, about out of gas. And I was like, whew.
It's a cool city, though.
Yeah. Is it?
Cool city. It is.
I guess I need to go back and explore it because I explored it at about 10 o'clock at night, and it was, I was worried about, in the name, it's not real, it's from a TV show.
Yeah.
That's how they got their name. And so, anyway, that was my experience there. But Albuquerque's great. Love Albuquerque. Love New Mexico.
Well, thank you, boys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So
thanks for joining us. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of your time here in Monterey.
I am.
Kind of a semi-home game for you.
It is. And my girlfriend and I are going to go over to the Monterey Bay Aquarium tomorrow morning before we get out of here. So she's excited about it.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us. Again, to be continued, because I have a feeling that this isn't where it ends for us.
It's definitely not going to end here for me. I can tell you that.
That's a wrap on today's episode with the incredible Chef David Ruiz. We hope you enjoyed hearing about his culinary journey and the innovative ways he's bringing fresh produce to the forefront of modern cuisine. A big thank you to our partners, Kern Ridge Growers, Wiggins Farms, SunFed, and IFCO. Your support makes this all possible. For more exclusive content and updates, visit us at www.thefreshcred.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode of The Fresh CrEd.